Hey everyone, my name is David Dunbar, or the Theme Park Evangelist. Tonight I wanted to do another uh, my high school days video regarding the theater class, acting class, whatever, that I took around the same exact time that I was taking the cooking class. But before I get into that, there's been so many crazy things going on with the Central Florida theme parks, but specifically Walt Disney World. Disney World, specifically Michael, I met Bob Chapek, made a really big announcement that was a big eye opener, especially dancers in Genesis. It's basically not the same family and friendly environment that we used to remember it to be. Now, Disney thinks that they are because Disney is under the impression that it's so that everybody should be accepted for who they are, regardless of who they claim to be or who they think they are, and all that fun stuff. And a lot of people don't necessarily agree with that, so a lot of people are turning away from Disney. And a lot of people are turning towards Answers in Genesis, who are still practicing their family friendly practices or whatever. They're still demonstrating that they are the Christians that they claim and profess they are. So that's very comforting. Also, I wanted to say that I'm off not this Saturday but the following Saturday, so April 23rd, which I believe is a day that Kings Island is open, but I'm going to check on that really quick. So, while I am pulling that up, if Kings Island is open that day, now I am trying to get April 29th off, which is Kings Island's 50th birthday. And that would be really cool to have that off because of the fact that I just personally really wanted to be there on the actual day that on their actual birthday. So yes, it is open from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Now their actual opening day this year is on April 16th, and then their birthday, their 50th birthday, is actually on April 29th. I wasn't so concerned about getting April 16th off. I knew that was going to be out of the question. Which ironically, I probably could go after work because I work till 5. But all the same, I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, don't really feel like driving all the way out there, especially Easter weekend. It's probably going to be insane. What's the point? I'm off the next Saturday anyway, unless I can pick up a shift. So, my plan was to go out there the following Saturday on April 23rd and do a YouTube video that day, and then I was going to go back on April 29th as long as I get the day off. And I was going to go and do another YouTube video that day as well. So there's some exciting information for you guys regarding when I'm going to be going back to vlogging the theme parks again. Brian Brown has allowed me to use his oh my word, what is that theme park out in California called? Give me 1 second while I think about it. Brian Brown has allowed me to use his Knott's Berry Farm Platinum Pass to get me free parking until I can get myself a Gold Pass. I am considering getting a Gold Pass just in case one of my friends does not decide to renew their Gold Pass again, which would give me the ability to save at least $20 to $30 on parking every single time, and trust me, that adds up fast. If you think about it, let's say that I went to Kings Island about 5 times over the course of the year. I'm just throwing that number out there. I'm sure I go a lot more than that, especially without being in school or whatnot. If parking is at least $25. That's $125 that I've already spent just on parking alone. And that could easily go towards a gold pass. So a gold pass practically pays for itself. Of course, if I also got a gold pass, the other catch is I was planning on getting one of those souvenir cup things. So as of right now, I am planning on getting the souvenir bottle. However, though, there is no reason for me to get it if I do end up getting a gold pass, and that way I can just keep getting the disposable paper cups, and every 15 minutes I can just go get a new one. Yes, it doesn't hold as much, but at the same time, this year versus last year, I just don't period drink a lot of soda, and ice water is always free, so I can always go up to one of the food and beverage stations and just go get an ice water. I have noticed at Kings Island, when it's busy, they have a lot more like soda fountains or whatnot open, versus near the end of the year they don't have as many open. But at the same time, I've also noticed there's not as many people waiting in line to get soda anymore. Because I went to Kings Island practically the entire year. The only time of the year I did not get to go to Kings Island last year, and I was planning on going, was June. Oh, no, not June. Sorry, July. Because of the fact that I was on quarantine, because I wanted to go and do Grand Carnival, but I didn't get to because I was stuck in quarantine. So, Lord willing, I'll get to go do Grand Carnival this year. So I'll be really excited about that. But I did at least get to go to Haunt, so that was cool. I mean, as crazy as it was, I don't remember a lot of people waiting in line to get drinks. But anyway, enough talk about theme parks. Let's get down to my actual my high school days discussion. So, I mean, yeah, I'm sure the first chunk of what I wanted to talk about was probably a little more interesting than this part, but more or less, I was in this acting class, theater class, back in 2009. It was the first real acting class I was ever in. Everything else I was in was just kind of like minor school plays thrown together. This was the very first serious one I have ever done besides anything I ever did in middle school. All those were all Christian based, I will say that right now, but it's not like there wasn't a lot of work put into it. This was the very first play that I was in that was not Christian based, that had a lot of work and effort put into it. And the first time I was ever working with people that were all my age or older, versus the other one, everybody just kind of ranged in age. There really was no, like, let's just go with Hans Bronson, for example, which was literally a play about a Swedish Olympic athlete. That was me in the play, and that was in 2008, so the year before. And I was being interviewed by these young ladies, and I'm not even lying, they were all middle school students, but, well, I shouldn't say that. They were all elementary school students. I forget. They're not. I'm thinking back to when my brother was in school there. I mean, after I left, that is. But no, they were all in elementary school. So, me being 8th grade, then they're all like 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. So I was like, I don't know, a lot older than them. I can't do the math in my head necessarily, but it did feel kind of awkward. But I was like, okay, and they kept forgetting their lines, and oh my word, I practiced my lines over and over and over again. And back in the day, I was a little less care or understanding towards people that didn't always understand or remember their lines. So whenever I was up there and somebody would forget their lines, instead of trying to drop hints, because I mean, I can't really say the line because everybody would hear me on the microphone, I would just go on, because I was getting impatient. It's like, how do you not know your lines? That's just how I felt back then. Versus now, I feel like I would try to drop hints of some sort and try to be like, Your line's this, your line's that. I don't know. I just stand there patiently and wait, and I would just, if I had to skip a line, I would have to skip a line. And I'm just like, oh, well, she skipped that line, or he skipped that line, I might as well move on. Well, that ended up throwing me off in ninth grade, so before I get to that, I wanted to say so. We spent months and months and months, literally the entire first half of the school year, just practicing lines and just getting a full understanding. There is so much to getting ready for a play that I didn't even know about. I mean, we're talking more serious than I had ever been taught in middle school. I mean, don't get me wrong. We spent every single music class session preparing for our Christmas program every single year, our spring program. So I can't exactly say that we didn't take it seriously. And then there was students who were like, "Is this a music class or is this an acting class?" I do remember people saying that, but no, I was in an actual high school acting class, and the fact that literally we were just going over like the entire play. That's obvious, but what I'm trying to get at is we were going over the fact that we wanted everybody to know exactly who their part was. We wanted everybody to be 100% comfortable with their part. We wanted everybody to be 100% comfortable with like the time frame, like the time of year that this play took place in, as well as the turn of the century or whatever. We wanted everybody to be completely familiar with the scenery, the whole 9 yards. There was so much involved that I was not even aware of. I was like, wow. So, I kept wondering, like, so when are we going to ever get around to, like, building this set? I remember one of my rehearsals, we came in on a Saturday one time, and I was always so shy in school, and I came in one time on a Saturday, I was all blah, 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 blah. And everybody's like, shut up. They're like, David, we need to focus here. It's almost, unfortunately, I'm just kind of like that. I get my priorities out of order. I've always been like that, I said. And I'm just coming in, I'm like, oh, I guess I should be focusing, not going, blah, 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 blah. So that got my attention big time. And here comes the sad thing. So when the big day did actually arrive, I was a stagehand that night. That was after the big cooking class dinner. And I was up there. I was trying to feed lines to the guys. And I kept thinking to myself, these guys are doing so bad. I can show them off. And this is funny later because when the actual play came, the drama teacher did say that we did better, but at the same time, I end up turning the play from a murder mystery into a comedy. And I can basically go over a lot of the mistakes I made. So before I go into the actual play on the night that I performed, since I'm sure you guys are more interested in me, I'm going to tell you guys what the play was about. So the play was called The Mousetrap by Agatha Christie. And basically these two people had invited all these people over to their mansion to spend the night or whatever. And they end up getting trapped there because of some freak blizzard that shows up. I think they all either got invited over for the night or for dinner, whatever. And there is actually something like this that's similar. It's called Clue. You probably have seen the movie, where there's like 3 different endings that could take place at the end of the movie. It's always random, but that's the closest I can give you. And there's a part in the movie where the lights all go off and there's a dead body on the floor, and this was after a cop shows up, and he's like literally walking around the entire mansion trying to find clues and trying to figure out like who caused or who committed the crime, who committed the murder, and the guy and his wife are all panicked because their house or mansion has turned into basically a scene of a crime, so they're like not doing well at all. I mean, I don't remember the actual play itself. I'm gonna see if I can look it up. So hang on one second. All right, this might be a little long, but I did find it on Wikipedia. Act 1 opens with the murder of a woman named Maureen Lyon, played out in sound only. The action then moves to Monkswool Manor, recently converted to a guest house and run by a young couple. I was Giles Ralston, actually, in the play. Sorry, I lost my place. Anyway, while waiting for the guests to arrive, Molly listens to a radio report about the Lyon murder, which notes that police are looking for a man in a dark overcoat observed near the scene. Now, ironically, when the police officer did show up, he does show up in a dark overcoat, but everybody just ignores that, and they're just like, oh, he must just be here just to help out with the murder that happened, but there's more to it than that. Their 4 guests arrive. Christopher Wren is an unkempt, flighty young man. Giles reacts strongly to Wren with instant dislike, and Molly with instinctual trust. Sorry. Mrs. Boyle and Major Metcalf then arrive together in a taxi from the station. Mrs. Boyle complains about many things. Metcalf is an amiable ex-military man. Miss Casewell, a mannish young woman, is the last of the book guests to arrive. Before an unexpected 5th party appears, identifying himself in a foreign accent as Mr. Parvenci, or Mr. Parvenci. He tells the Royalstones his car has overturned a snowdrift. So this is actually who is the murderer, but everybody assumes he is a police officer. He remarks that the snow has blocked the roads and that the denizens of the house are trapped. Uneasy about Paravinci's manner, Molly nonetheless places him in the last remaining room. The next afternoon, the guest house proves to be snowed in. The residents are restless. Molly answers the telephone to Superintendent Hogben of the Berkshire Police. Hogben tells her that he is dispatching Sergeant Trotter to the guest house, and that the Ralstons must listen carefully to what Trotter has to tell them. The Ralstons wonder what they could have done to garner police attention. Trotter appears at the door on a pair of skis, and Major Metcalf discovers that the phone has stopped working. Trotter explains he has been sent in regard to the murder of Maureen Lyon, and a story loosely based on the real Dennis O'Neill case. The dead woman and her husband had mistreated their 3 foster children, resulting in the death of the youngest. Both adults were imprisoned for their actions. The husband died in Gale, while the wife served her sentence and had been released, only to be found strangled. Police suspect the elder boy of the abused children, who would now be 22, of being the killer. Trotter reveals a notebook found at the murder scene contains, the address of the Monkswool Manor and the words 3 blind mice. A note reading, this is the first, I should say, was pinned to the woman's body. The police have sent Trotter to find out how the Ralston's guest house is connected to the murder, and whether the residents are in danger. Both Giles and Molly deny a connection to the case, though Molly is ill at ease answering Trotter's questions and quickly excuses herself. Trotter asks each of the guests to explain why they're at Monkswell Manor and any connection they have to the foster children. All 5 guests deny any personal knowledge of the case. While Trotter and Giles tour the house, Major Metcalf confronts Mrs. Boyle, revealing that she was one of the magistrates who had assigned the children to the foster's parents. Mrs. Boyle acknowledges this but denies that she has any responsibility for what eventually happened to the children there. As the evening wears on, Giles and Molly become suspicious of each other while the guests snipe at one another. Sergeant Trotter traces the phone wire to find out if it has been cut. Mrs. Boyle wanders back into the now empty room and listens to the radio. The opening notes of the three blind mice are heard whistled by an unknown party. Mrs. Boyle responds without alarm. Speaking to the only person she can see, suddenly the lights go out and a scuffle is heard. Moments later, Molly walks into the room and turns on the lights, only to find Mrs. Boyle dead on the floor. And that's just Act 1. And then there was an Act 2 on top of that. So, if I remember correctly, I had Act 1 completely memorized, as Act 2 is where I was kind of... and that's where I turned the murder mystery more into a comedy. So, at that point, there was a lot of, like, frustration and chaos and a lot of bickering, and even the guests were starting to yell at the sorry. Even the guests were starting to yell at the host and hostess. And and basically one of the mistakes that I made in the second act was, while I was being confronted by all these guests, I'm supposed to grab my wife's hand at the time, and I'm supposed to just storm off. No, the guy who's pretending to be a cop, I'm gonna go with the fifth guy who just shows up at the house. Though there's also a chance that it might be the guy who claims to be the police officer. There's also a chance that might not actually be the police officer. That actually might be the bad guy. Regardless, the guy who claims to be a police officer or whatever is the actual bad guy. And I go to grab that guy's hand, and the person's supposed to come with me. I'm supposed to be able to just grab the hand and start moving. And I realize that the hand feels weird for one thing. Another thing, I realize the body's not moving with me. So I'm like, that's really weird. So I slowly but surely turn my head, and I see who I'm holding on to. Instead of just going with it, I accidentally yell in the microphone, "Oops, wrong hand or wrong arm." Honestly, these days, I would have made it funny without embarrassing myself or everybody else. If I had accidentally made a mistake like that where I actually grabbed the wrong hand and I start to walk forward, I know there's a lot of, like, in the moment kind of pressure. I would have probably said something along the lines of, like, "I didn't ask for your hand," or I probably would have just gone with body language, and I probably would have been like, it's like, "Give me your hand." And it still would have worked, and I wouldn't have been it would have been so embarrassing all the same. I also got called out because I was doing a lot of whispering and talking quietly behind stage or behind the set into the microphone, and a lot of people could hear me. So I was not even taking that into consideration. And I was like, oh, oops. So yeah, I got called out on that one. Another one that made me laugh was even the the bad guy was making a couple of mistakes, but Another one that made me laugh, and I was surprised the detective did not catch this. So I left my coat carelessly, that borrowed from my dad, by the way, off to the side somewhere. And I literally walk up to the bad guy, which we don't know he's a bad guy yet, by the way, in the play. And I'm like, "Hey, I borrow your coat?" I did a good job ad libbing here because I was just so stressed out at the time. And I was like, "Hey, can I borrow your coat?" And he was like, "Oh yeah, sure, that's fine." And then I found out later it was actually mine, and I was like, "Oh, I did a good job ad libbing there then." Because I couldn't figure out where my coat was. I was like freaking out, so I just ad libbed it. So I just pretended it was actually his, and I just pretended that I couldn't find my coat in the play, and it worked. So at least that time I did ad lib. Another time where I really screwed up. It was my two favorites were when I was supposed to be having an argument with my pretend wife, and I'm supposed because I had a hard time being angry at the current time or whatever, just because of who I was at the time, and I've gotten a lot better at my acting ever since then. I was supposed to grab hold of a chair and like slam it, and I couldn't remember my lines, so I just started just throwing ad libs out. I started ad libbing, and then she just goes, "What?" That was great. It's like, what are you talking about? And I'm just like, oh. And I think I was around the same exact time that people were trying to feed me lines, and I literally gave away that it was a play at one point. I was like, what? And they were like, go back. Go. Oh my word. That was like one of the most embarrassing plays I've ever had in my life. I will never screw up like that again. Actually, I did keep that promise because 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, I never screwed up that badly ever again. But thankfully, that was my last play that I did the major role in. Ever since then, I stepped down and I started doing minor roles. I think, for one thing, I just let other people take the major roles because I didn't want them, per se. And for another thing, people grabbed the major roles before I could. 10th grade, I played as Opey, so I wasn't necessarily a minor character, but I wasn't a major character. I was kind of in between. And then 11th and 12th grade, I big time stepped down because 11th grade, I was just some random bird that showed up for like 2 minutes, and then 12th grade I was just a guard for like 2 minutes. And both of those plays I had very small lines, and I was okay with that. I was still in the play, but I said what I needed to say, and then I was like done. And I was so thankful about that because I got to stay off stage pretty much the entire time. But 10th grade I killed it, and honestly I look back at 10th grade and I am so happy that I redeemed myself because there was one point where nobody really knew their lines and I did, and this just shows how far I've come over the years. There was one part where everybody was supposed to run around and freak out, and I decided to take it a step further. And I saw they were recording the play at the time. Now, this was probably not the brightest idea but I really want to make the kids laugh. So I just kept going along with the play until I got to the part where the one of the dwarves sneezed, and I literally took off running, and then I took a dive. I like just took a dive towards the camera. I'm surprised I didn't knock it down in the process. And I decided to take it a step further. There was one part where I'm supposed to be having a conniption of some sort, and I decided to start using the fake doorway set up or the wall, whatever, to show that I was just being immature and silly. I don't know if anybody looked at me weird, but honestly, I was just trying to make the character come alive more, and it worked. So that just shows, that play just shows that I learned a lot from my mistakes. And yes, even though I screwed up badly the previous year, I made it up big time the following year. So I feel like even though it's been who knows how many years since, well, I mean, actually, I do know it's been 13 years since I've done that play. If I were to act again, I could make it up. I like thick. I could redeem myself. I mean, honestly, I can't go back in time and make that play a lot better than it was. I mean, the play's in the past now. There's nothing I can do about it. But at the same time, I can at least redeem myself here in the present, like I did that following year. So, anyway, that was definitely one of the more interesting electives I took. That's for sure. So the next topic I would like to talk to you guys about, I have one more elective I want to talk to you guys about, but I'll save that for another time, probably tomorrow for all I know. And that one's going to be my computer based elective. It was basically a video editing class. So one of my former coworkers, George Wagner, actually took a video editing class when he was getting his GED down in Florida, Central Florida, which he's living there again. I don't know if I ever told him I took a video editing class in high school, but yes, I took one in ninth grade and I did really well at it. And I would like to tell you guys more or less what we learned and what I had to do, as well as the original final project and then what we got. And then at the very end of the video, instead of attaching the most recent video, which will be this one, I'm going to instead attach, I'm saying to that one, not this one. So for the next one, instead of attaching this video to the end of that video, I'm going to attach the high school project that we worked on instead. And I want you guys to see what we did, all the hard work that we put into that class. And that was basically the final outcome. And you guys won't unfortunately get to see what we originally were working on. And trust me, we did film it. We were in the middle of editing it, but it just wasn't going to work. And not to mention, everybody was being way too goofy as it was. So I knew it wasn't going to work. So I'm kind of glad we did end up going with what we did. And as much as I would love to show you guys a video and do a commentary at the same time, which I could do, but at the same time I would have to do a separate YouTube video about that. So who knows, I might film that YouTube video and then like as a separate YouTube video, like as a bonus video from my high school days. And then I'll just do a commentary over top of it. I will mute all the sound from the video. That way I can just do a commentary instead and basically just tell you guys what's going on throughout the entire play. Because I don't know how many people watched the play and didn't quite understand the concept. I mean, that's something I'm definitely going to cover in the next video, but it'll be really fun to do a commentary while the video is going at the same time too. Alright guys, I think I've said enough for the night, so always remember, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Have a great night. Peace out.